There we go.
All right, have a good show.
We're recording. All right, fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Timbrooks, and I am running for United States Congress, House of Representatives for Oregon's Congressional District 6. That's the guys over there in Washington, D.C., the big ones, the people that make all the decisions for America as a whole, you know? So I know that the election is not until 2026, and it's 2025, but here's the whole thing. I am a Republican, and, I figure winning the hearts and minds of the liberals and the Democrats in Oregon is going to be a little bit of a chore, so may as well get an early start. So today, I want to talk about something. The United States debt, the U.S. national debt is around, $36.22 trillion as of this morning. When I checked on Google, it was about $36.22 trillion, believe it or not. I mean, that is a lot of money, okay? Well, I'm an engineer, and engineers are good at research. That's what you do. When you're an engineer, you research things, you look into stuff, and I did some research on the national debt. And let's go ahead and start the slides here, okay? I have figured out how to remove $5 trillion from the national debt. Now let's just take a moment to look at me right there and see what a great looking guy I am with a beer and a cigar and the Marine Corps Eagle Globe and Anchor there. Thank you, Mother Nature, for making me so pretty. Anyways, the United States national debt has surpassed $34 trillion, drawing concern from policymakers and citizens alike, okay? That's us, the citizens. That is our money that is right there. Well, that's our debt. We owe that to everybody, okay? A whole big, juicy bunch of money. If you were to take all that money and put it into a pile in the middle of your kitchen, if you fell off of it, you would break both your legs, seriously. I mean, that's a lot of money, okay? A significant portion of that debt is internal, owed by federal government to itself through various agencies and trust funds. Oh, that bubble water, good. This internal structure presents a unique opportunity to explore debt reduction strategies that do not require tax increases, spending cuts, or monetization of any kind. This is what is called, okay, now this is something I figured out, and it's just, bear with me, okay? You're gonna hear where I'm coming from, and you're gonna be thinking, he can't be serious. No, but yeah, I mean, it's the government, okay? So pretty much anything you say about the government is going to be true at some point in the life cycle of the government, okay? So here we go, right? In circular debt structures, multiple parties owe each other money in a closed loop. If these debts are appropriately aligned, they can often be resolved by offsetting entries or through a single circulating payment. This principle is comically demonstrated in a Three Stooges sketch where three characters resolve $120 total debt using a single $20 bill by passing it through each debtor in a cycle. And yes, I was inspired by the Three Stooges. No, this was not a Curly episode. It was not even a Shemp episode. It was a Curly Joe episode. I know. Curly Joe is the least of all the Stooges, but hear me out. It's great, okay? And this is the part where I know you're going to be thinking that I can't possibly be serious because I was inspired by the Three Stooges. Well, I think a lot of the things, a lot of inspiration for real life comes from comedy. I'll give you an example. As a manufacturing engineer, this is a story that was told a long time ago. There was paint. Okay, paint is a great thing, but every once in a while it gets a little bit old. You have to chip the paint off. Well, a long time ago, chipping paint was a real chore. And so there was this one guy at a paint company who made a joke. He said, why don't we just put gunpowder in the paint? And when it's time to take the paint off, you just light it, gunpowder just takes all the paint off. And it was a joke. But there were some enterprising chemists that went home thinking about what he said, and they came back the next day and said, instead of gunpowder, how about if we use this other chemical? So they put this other chemical into the paint so that it makes it easier to take the paint off when you want to take it off. And it's just absolutely brilliant. So a lot of times things that are said in jest can motivate really inspiring things to happen, okay? So back to this, yeah. There's the Three Stooges, and basically, okay, so here's the thing. You got Moe, you got Curly, and you got, Curly Joe. No, Moe, Larry, and Curly Joe, okay? And yeah, my allergies are still kicking up. I need to have a lozenge and everything. Sorry about that. It's weird, I know. A grown man has to have a cough drop and everything. Anyways, my mom says it's okay. So, you got Larry, you got Moe, you got Curly Joe, okay? Each one, Curly Joe comes in with a $10 bill, $20 bill. Says, hey, I got a $20 bill. Moe's like, hey, you owe me $40. Well, here's $20. I'll owe you $20. Larry says to Moe, hey, you owe me $40. Well, here's $20. I'll owe you $20. Hey, Larry, don't you owe me $40? Oh, yeah, well, here's $20. I'll owe you $20. Here's the $20 I owe you. Here's the $20 I owe you. Here's the $20 I owe you. So the $20 bill comes back to Curly Joe, and all the debt is resolved. And that just sounded so ridiculous and so stupid. I knew there had to be some kind of application to the American government, okay? So that's when I did my research, and that's when I found out that $5 trillion of our national debt is owed internally and can be resolved through the same kind of Three Stooges kind of debt payment thing. And yeah, I know it's dumb, but hey, Anyways, as of 2024, the U.S. national debt is comprised of publicly held debt, $27 trillion, includes foreign governments, institutional investors, and private citizens. Intragovernmental holdings, $6.8 trillion, including Social Security Trust Fund, Medicare trust funds, and various federal retirement funds. And before you get on the whole Social Security is being canceled thing, it's not being canceled. This will not cancel Social Security. Social Security will be there. That it's in a separate fund. More or less, this will do more to save Social Security from government than hurt it. Okay, so this is not going to hurt Social Security. It's not going to take away any of the benefits. In fact, it's going to ensure that Social Security is there in the future. Okay, it's not going to go broke. Okay, so Federal Reserve holdings between 5 and 6 trillion. The Fed purchases treasuries but returns profit to the U.S. Treasury, creating a de facto circular flow. While publicly held debt cannot be resolved through circular methods, the later two categories are candidates for structured internal debt offsetting. And that's a structured internal debt offsetting. I wonder if the Three Stooges called that little skit, hey, let's do a skit about structured debt offsetting. Oh yeah, hey, no, that's not what they called it. They're pretty smart, but I don't think that's what they called it. Anyways, structured internal debt offsetting. A structured audit of an intergovernmental and Federal Reserve held debt could identify offsets where, one agency's receivable matches another agency's payable. Interest obligations can be retired or reduced through forgiveness agreements. And interest, that is a huge thing because the interest on our national debt alone is like trillions of dollars. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, most of what you pay in income tax goes to pay just the interest on the national debt, not even the principal. Okay, it's just, oh man, it's just mind-boggling how stupid that is. That's just stupidly crazy, okay? The Treasury Department can legally record mutual cancellations, reducing gross debt, which is important. Treasury owes $3 trillion to Social Security. Fed holds $2 trillion in Treasuries. Social Security Trust Fund has reserves invested in Treasury securities. Through mutual offsets and legal agreements, $1 trillion can be canceled through guarantees in future tax revenue. The Fed could write off $1 trillion in exchange for lower interest rates. Okay, so based on conservative modeling, the circular payback strategy could reduce the reported national debt by $2.2 trillion to $5 trillion, representing approximately 6% to 14% of the total debt. Okay, so the conservative estimate is 2.2 and the aggressive estimate is 5 trillion. So somewhere between 2.2 trillion and 5 trillion. So the least amount that can be removed from the national debt is 2.2 trillion. I mean, that's just like, oh yeah, do it and it's done, right? It could be up to 5 trillion and maybe even beyond that, because we really don't know. I mean, how much of that is, maybe international too. So this reduction could occur without raising taxes, cutting services. You remember what I said about Social Security? We are not going to cut services or inflating the money supply, offering a pragmatic financial rebalancing rooted in interagency cooperation and fiscal transparency. Bubble water, good. To implement this proposal, the following actions may be required. And of course, congressional authorization, that's going to be an important thing. Audits to ensure transparency, and that's what the whole Doge thing is about. Amendments to the Federal Reserve Act if deeper cooperation is needed, and public communication strategy to assure markets and taxpayers. So basically, it's just like what I was saying. People are going to be hearing that the national debt is being reduced. And so naturally there's this paranoia. All this paranoia is going to go out there. Oh no, you're going to take money away from veterans and elderly people and Social Security and all that stuff. And it's like, no, it's not going to happen. It's internal debt. It's a stupid amount of internal debt that shouldn't exist in the first place. So that's what's going to happen, okay? Circular payback is not a panacea for the national debt, but represents a practical and overlooked tool in the federal financial management toolkit. The U.S. government should pursue a formal study of debt circularity, conduct an interagency audit, and consider legislative proposals to enact structured circular debt reduction. Okay? Now we can commission a report on circular debt within the federal agencies. That sounds like something Elon Musk has been doing with Doge. Propose a congressional resolution authorizing internal and bilateral debt offsets and launch a public awareness campaign to explain the strategy's legitimacy. Okay? So essentially, and this is something I learned back a long time ago when I first became a manufacturing engineer, one of the most difficult things to convince people about is the need for change. Change management is a very, very difficult thing because anytime change comes along in the manufacturing environment, the first thing people think is, well, they want to fire some people. And it's like, no, we don't want to fire some people. We don't want to end anything. We want to reduce costs. Reducing costs, improving service, that's what we're all about. We want to keep the people that we have. We want to keep the services we have. We're just looking for a cheaper way to do it. Change is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes it's good. Okay? In this particular case, the change is going to be good. Seriously, carrying a $5 trillion national debt, the interest on $5 trillion alone is a huge amount of money that the taxpayers have to put in. It's just stupid. Okay, so yeah, don't worry about any changes that are going to happen. They'll be pretty transparent to you and me. All right. Yeah, this right here. Okay, so I've been looking for a slogan. And my slogan, what I want my slogan to be, I want my slogan to be the kind of thing that people, it's oh God, I don't want to offend any one group of people. I don't want it to be anti-Democrat. I don't want it to be anti-Republican or pro-Republican, anti-Democrat or anything like that. I don't want it to hurt feelings or anything like that. I want my slogan to direct attention where attention needs to be, all right? And what I found is this is going to be my new slogan, okay? Oh yeah, by the way, we're finished with the $5 trillion thing. So if that's all you cared about, you can stop watching now. The $5 trillion thing, we're going to do that with the Three Stooges style of payback. Thank you for watching. I love you. You're beautiful. Tom Timbrooks, Oregon's 6th Congressional District, United States Congress. Vote for me, okay? Anyway, I've been looking for a slogan, a really good slogan. Got me a humdinger here, okay? Never underestimate the potential for tyranny and hypocrisy from strategically placed, ideologically indoctrinated politicians and the activists who enable them. And what started me on the path of creating this, George Carlin, back in the 1970s, 1980s, he came up with this little slogan of his own. He said, never underestimate the power of stupid people in large numbers. And the fact that he made that really, really simple kind of tells me he meant that message for stupid people. You know? I mean, 50%, when it comes to being smart and being stupid, 50%, look, if you got 300 million people in the United States, okay, here's 300 million people. I squished them down. Okay, half of those people are below average in intelligence. That's just the natural. Okay, half of the people, there's going to be an average intelligence. You got 300 million people, half of the people, here's average, okay? That's the average. Half are going to be above average, half are going to be below average, which means 150 million people in the United States are below average in smarts. So if you're talking to somebody, you're listening to me right now, chances are 50-50 that I'm one of the stupid people that George Carlin was talking about, right? So the reason he made his message so simple is because he's addressing stupid people. Well, I don't want to address stupid people. I want to address smart people. So I made mine a little more involved, okay? I made mine a little more involved. So it's not just a slogan, it's a warning to all Americans left, right, and center that something is happening beneath the surface of our political system, and it's time we start paying attention. So I'm going to break it down for you here. When I say never underestimate, it's not paranoia, it's awareness. When we underestimate a threat, we don't prepare for it, we ignore it. And that's how bad ideas take root and spread unnoticed until the damage is already done. And this is part of the thing where we have liberals, we have conservatives, we have Republicans, we have Democrats. I have a lot of respect for the Democrats. The Democrats have got some really good ideas. I mean, the Democrats are the ones that got us onto the moon. JFK, we're going to the moon. All right. It's called strategic spending. Now, I've gone over this before, where Republicans believe in fiscal responsibility, AKA cheap, doing it as cheap as possible. You know, don't spend money if you don't have to. Democrats believe in strategic spending, and strategic spending just means buying stuff that we might need, you know, investing in things that might provide America with a better future. The Panama Canal, Golden Gate Bridge, the Transcontinental Railroad, the Erie Canal, things of that nature. Transportation, communication, things like that. Infrastructure. Those are things typically that Democrats like to invest pretty heavily in, and I have no problem with that. I think that those are things that need to be invested in. Well, because Republicans don't want to spend any money and Democrats want to spend money, Democrats can, you know, sort of got the reputation of being the people with the wild ideas. And so what's happened is the ideas have gotten wilder and wilder and wilder. And now Democrats are sort of caught, you know, the true Democrats, the people who really believe in the whole Democratic code, they have maintained a certain code. Like John Fetterman, okay? John Fetterman is getting accused of not being a Democrat anymore because he doesn't agree with some of the things that the Democrats are saying. Well, he is a Democrat. It's just the other people are getting a little bit wild and crazy. These are the people who are ideologically indoctrinated. These are the Democrats that they all say the same thing. They all have exactly the same speech to give to their constituents. And you know, these are the ones where it's like you'll see on YouTube sometimes where they'll take here's all the Democrats, they'll put them in an array, and you'll have like 30 of these Democrat representatives, and they are all saying exactly the same thing. They all have the same speech, the same rhetoric, okay? These are the people who are ideologically indoctrinated. And when you're ideologically indoctrinated, you refuse to work with anybody who is not in your ideology. And you see, that is the danger of Republican and Democrat ideologies, is the fact that if there is an ideology, if there are, you know, things that Democrats typically do and Republicans typically do, any deviation from that ideology is seen as dangerous. So the ideologically indoctrinated people, these are the people that you have to worry about, because they are not going to work for America. They're going to work for their ideology. So never underestimate means these are the people who you cannot underestimate. These are the people who are going to cause the problems. The potential for tyranny and hypocrisy. So tyranny doesn't always come with a crown or a gun. Sometimes it comes wrapped in the language of compassion or progress. Hypocrisy is its shield, where those in power say one thing but do another. The danger is real when these forces go unchecked. Now, what is I was talking about? A couple of shows ago, I was talking about how the Republican Party, I want to take back the word progressive for the Republican Party, because what the Democrats seem to be doing is not so much progressive, but just living out their fantasies, trying to make the government do what the individual person wants. Now, the government's purpose is to accomplish collectively that which cannot be accomplished by the individual. And what is that? Preamble to the Constitution. Individuals can't do the following. Form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. Individuals can't do that. So what the government has to do in order to make sure those things happen is the government has to assure that people have good infrastructure, potential for good jobs, safe housing, food that is nutritious and readily available, and fuel. Because you need fuel. You need fuel to stay warm. You need fuel to go back and forth to the grocery store, whatever. But that's what the government is supposed to provide. And any step in that direction is progress. That is a progressive attitude. Okay? Now, some people are saying that progress is defined as certain behaviors that are more and more allowed. Like, let's say, what is it? As some person got on some talk show and said, well, Democrats are progressive because they embrace the homosexual lifestyle. And I mean, here's the thing about that. Nowhere in the government's charter is homosexuality, it's nobody's business. It is not the government's business. Like I said, infrastructure, jobs, houses, food, fuel, those things. Homosexuality, homosexual lifestyle, I don't care. It's not the government's business what you're doing with your lifestyle. Just go ahead and do that, okay? So, we might be getting off the point here. Yeah, tyranny and hypocrisy. This is where, what is it that they'll say, oh God, hey, you don't embrace our lifestyle. Well, we don't care about your lifestyle, And so if you get a government that hides behind, well, we embrace your lifestyle, we support the LGBTQ stuff. Well, you're hiding behind that kind of thing, and you're saying, well, I may not be good at providing infrastructure, jobs, housing, food, or fuel, but I support your lifestyle. And it's like, who cares? I need infrastructure, I need jobs, I need houses, I need food, I need fuel, So that's the kind of thing I'm talking. That is the tyranny. That's the hypocrisy right there. These are people who think they're progressive for one thing, but really they're just incompetent when it comes to providing real needs for people, So that's what we're talking about there. Strategically placed, okay? Some politicians rise to power not because they've earned trust, but because they've been placed, positioned by machines, donors, fringe movements with agendas far from public interest. These placements are not accidents. They're part of a larger strategy to control the narrative and capture key levers of government, okay? And Joe Biden, not a great president, barely coherent. I mean, the guy was on a talk show a couple weeks ago, and he was basically just falling asleep. He would say a few things. I think he's kind of like a puppet. His wife had to come in and save him a couple times. So what we know is, while Joe Biden was president, a lot of things that should have been noticed weren't noticed, and a lot of things that some of the Democrats wanted to happen started happening. And that had an overall negative effect on you and me, the rights that we have. So, this is, this is what I mean by, strategically placed. If you put the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time, a lot of bad things can happen. So, that's why I'm saying, never underestimate the potential for tyranny and hypocrisy from strategically placed and ideologically indoctrinated politicians. That's what I was saying about these aren't leaders. They're megaphones for ideology. They don't listen. They don't think. They repeat. And they follow doctrine over data, emotion over reason, and loyalty to the extreme over service to the people. And this goes hand in hand with what George Carlin was talking about, where half the people you meet are below average in intelligence. So these people who do this stuff, they know that at least half the people in America are going to listen to everything they have to say because they're not smart enough to perform their due diligence. And you see, this is why a person like myself, an engineer, I do everything I can to perform due diligence. Whenever I vote for somebody, whenever I vote for any kind of government action, I go on the internet. I go on YouTube. I see what kind of stuff these people support, what kind of things they've done, what they've accomplished, what are their plans. And I perform my due diligence and I vote for the people that I think will be able to provide for infrastructure, jobs, housing, food, and energy. I vote for people who are going to want to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. The $5 trillion that I just mentioned a minute ago, well, reducing the national debt by $5 trillion is securing the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, because that's $5 trillion that our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren aren't going to have to pay back. See, those are the kind of people who I vote for when I vote for a politician. The people who have an objective understanding of what government is supposed to do. 50% of the people in America aren't going to perform their due diligence because they're just not smart enough to do it. Some of them might, I don't know. But what George Carlin said about never underestimating the power of stupid people in large groups, I mean, half the people in America being below average, that's the type of people he was talking about. And these are the people who are just going to do what they're told because they listen to the narrative rather than performing their due diligence. Okay? And that's how the ideologically indoctrinated people become strategically placed. It's just, stupid people doing stupid things for stupid reasons. That's just the nature of the situation there. And the activists who enable them, and let's not pretend politicians act alone. Behind every radical policy, every divisive campaign, there's often a crowd of activists creating the pressure, the noise, and sometimes the chaos that keeps the extremes in control. This is Antifa. This is BLM. And it's not just on the left either. On the right, we have the Proud Boys. We have another group. We've got, they're a right wing, they're a left wing. And these are people who make all kinds of noise and cause all kinds of problems anytime anybody tries to implement any kind of change, any kind of deviation from the narrative, okay? So I'm kind of picking on the liberals and the Democrats and everything. I shouldn't be doing that. But, man, allergy season. Thank goodness for bubble water. I love bubble water. With a little squirt of lime. That's good stuff. Vitamin C. So, anyways, I was watching a video a while ago about what was happening was you had some old people, and these old people were trying to walk from their house or whatever out to a car. There were some Antifa people walking behind them. And these Antifa people were walking very, very close to the old people, and they were saying things to them like, why don't you just die? You're useless to society. Why don't you just go ahead and die? Why don't you kill yourself? And another one was saying, your blood would look so beautiful on the sidewalk. And there were police. There were police that were actually escorting the Antifa people, making sure that the Antifa people don't mix with the regular people, making sure there's some kind of a barrier there, okay? And so, see, the First Amendment guarantees people the right to say whatever they want. Well, Congress cannot create any laws that prevent people from saying what they want to say, okay? Also, Congress cannot create any laws that prevents people from gathering where they want to gather. First Amendment. Okay? It's a very, very important amendment. It's the cornerstone of our democracy, our constitutional republic. Okay? The problem is that those people, those old people, they also have rights. I think something is happening there. These old people walk into their car, they also have rights, okay? And they have, what on the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. According to the Declaration of Independence, all people have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, inalienable rights provided by God, by our Creator. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Every person has those rights. Watching this happen, watching these people, it kind of made me sick because I was in the Marine Corps from 1984 to 1988, all right? In September of 1983, it was just 6 months or so before I actually went to boot camp, there was a terrorist attack at a place in Lebanon where there were a bunch of Marines in a Marine Corps barracks. And the barracks was destroyed. All these people were buried alive. About 275 Marines paid the ultimate price. They died. And the reason they died so that the Constitution could be defended. These people who were buried in Lebanon, died in Lebanon by a terrorist attack, they died defending the constitutional rights of these Antifa people. They were defending the constitutional rights of these people to walk behind old people saying, why don't you just die? You're useless to society. Why don't you just go ahead and die? Your blood would look beautiful on the sidewalk. Those people have the right to do that because people in the military, like myself, we went out there and protected your constitutional rights, okay? So that kind of thing, these are the advocates. These are the people that are going to cause all kinds of problems if the politicians don't follow this strict narrative that was created for them. So this is what I'm talking about when I say the activists who enable them. So these politicians, what was it? Ted Cruz was having a conversation, a dialogue with one of the senators. What he was saying was something. I want you to say something. Do you condemn Antifa for what they're doing? Do you condemn MS-13? Do you condemn any of these groups? And the senator wouldn't condemn them or anything because that particular senator is a Democrat, and the Democrats, when they lose, Antifa and BLM and these guys tend to come out and start causing all kinds of problems. And this really, really, it irks me thinking that, the people in the military, people in America's military, they fought and died for the constitutional rights that these people just wipe their butts with, So it's annoying, but anyways, man, that's what I'm talking about, the activists who enable them. So our Constitution guarantees the right to assembly and protest, and the government must defend that right. But when those rights are used to intimidate, harass, or dehumanize innocent people, something fundamentally breaks. When political activists scream in the faces of elderly citizens, is what I was talking about, telling them they're worthless or should die, when they follow them down the street and cloak in free speech, that's not protest, that's psychological warfare. That's tyranny wearing the First Amendment as a mask. Any government that defends the behavior of tyrants and hypocrites is no longer defending liberty, it is defending tyranny. Now, this isn't a partisan problem. It's not about Democrat or Republican. It's a radicalization problem. And we must be willing to name it wherever it appears. On the left, we've seen Antifa, Black Lives Matter, Earth Liberation Fund. And I think those are the people who go around throwing orange food dye in buildings and painting windows and stuff like that. I think that's what those guys are. But anyways, yeah, on the right, we've got the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, Three Percenters, QAnon. So yeah, on the right, we have radicals also, but I don't know. I don't see as much. I don't see as much tyranny and hypocrisy with the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and like that. I mean, because these people take an objective approach, and they look at the Constitution. They say, "This is the Constitution. This is what we have to follow, and this is where we think that we're deviating. We're not deviating from a narrative. We're deviating from the principles of the Constitution. We're deviating from the principles that created the constitutional republic and what makes the constitutional republic better than any government in the world." Okay, so yeah, that's what I'm talking about there. So each of these extremes believes it is justified, but when the method is intimidation, when the outcome is fear, and when the cost is freedom, they are not fighting for liberty, they are attacking it. I believe the extremes can serve a purpose. They challenge us, they test our thinking, but when they dominate, when they manipulate, and when they silence reason, they don't just derail progress, they destroy trust. Because the core of our constitutional republic is a simple truth, and is the function of the government is to accomplish collectively what cannot be accomplished individually. And when government becomes a battlefield for ideological purity, it stops solving problems and starts settling scores. So here's where I stand. My campaign isn't about tearing down ideas. It's about protecting the core purpose of government, to do collectively what no individual can do alone. When ideology replaces integrity, we all lose. That's why I believe every congressional representative must return to the basics. Focus on what the people in their district actually need. Infrastructure, jobs, housing, food, and fuel. Those are the needs of every person that lives in America. Those four things are what every representative should concentrate on. Bringing the people of your district those five things. And of course, there's going to be some other minor things. Those are the big five. Those are the things that we really can't live without. Okay, so that's what I'm saying there, is that if you're a representative and you're not bringing these things to your people, that's tyranny, that's hypocrisy, and that's a waste of public funds. You're getting $174,000 a year, and you're not earning your money. Okay. Like I said, these aren't partisan issues, these are American issues, and these are the challenges I'm running to solve. Not with slogans or sound bites, but with policies, partnerships, and persistence. Okay? So, I'm Tom Timbrooks. I'm running for Congress in Oregon's 6th District, not to win an argument, but to get things done. If you're ready for a representative who sees through the noise and focuses on your needs, I invite you to stand with me. Let's restore purpose to Congress and results to the people. Okay, so that's pretty much what I got. I got a couple more slides here, things I've been working on, so let me show you them, okay? There we go. So here's George Carlin saying, never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. Right, George. Also, never underestimate the collective potential for tyranny and hypocrisy from strategically placed, ideologically indoctrinated politicians and the activists who enable them. I'm going to put these things up around McMinnville and maybe Salem, you know, around the areas where it's Congressional District 6. See if people like it. And that's the little playlist QR code down there. Also, I want to remind you, by the end of the Trump presidency, there will be two camps in America. Those of us who always supported him and those claiming they always supported him. Which one are you going to be? And this is my main campaign poster. Thomas W. Timbrooks for the U.S. House of Representatives, Oregon's congressional districts. More jobs for Oregon means less dependence on government welfare. And that's one of the big 5 things that I was talking about, is jobs. As a manufacturing engineer, I know exactly how to get jobs to Oregon. And more jobs means fewer, or less government welfare, okay? That's really the heart of the matter. I want to get us off government welfare. Government welfare is exactly why we have a $36 trillion national debt, $36.22 trillion. You know, the $0.22 trillion, that's $202 billion. I mean, that's still a lot of money. That's on the right side of the decimal point, but that's still a lot of money, you know? So, yeah, I want to get off of government welfare, and I know that the person I'm running against, Andrea Salinas, she's a good person. She's a good Democrat. She cares about citizens. So I'm never going to say anything bad about her, because I mean she's a rare commodity. She actually cares about people. So, you know, if you're a person who actually cares about people, your heart is in the right place. It's just sometimes, it's like I said before, humans are emotional creatures that think logically. Any kind of reaction we have to any situation that occurs is going to initially be an emotional response. In fact, you're probably going to carry over in order to cover for yourself, you're going to think logically. You're going to say, well, the reason I had that emotional response was this, that, and the other logical reason. You're going to try to make it sound logical, but the fact of the matter is you're just, you know, you're thinking with your heart. And that's not a bad thing. Humans, the reason that humans have survived, I mean, we are the weakest animals in the jungle. We don't have claws, we don't have fangs, we don't have anything in particular that sets us apart from being, food for other animals. The one characteristic that we have is that whenever we see a situation, whenever human beings see a bad situation, we will respond collectively emotionally. Okay, that's what we'll do. Stupid things that seem stupid because we're emotional, but without that characteristic, we would have died off as a species a million years ago, 10 million years ago, or whatever, okay? So, and it kind of reminds me, there's a saying in Hollywood, there's always 3 sides to every story, okay? 3 sides to every story. There's what we say happened, there's what they say happened, and somewhere between what we say happened and they say happened, there's what really happened. And what really happened is, well, let's look at common story, okay? Cinderella. Cinderella, the nursery rhyme. Your mom told you about Cinderella. Disney made that beautiful Cinderella movie. All we're hearing with the story, all we've ever heard is the story told from Cinderella's perspective, okay? And what do we have? We have a beautiful young girl. Her name is Ella, and people call her Cinderella because, her stepmother has her working in the house, keeping things clean. And when she's keeping things clean, like the fireplace, she'll get smudges with cinders. So her sisters, that she's not related to, call her Cinderella, okay? Well, my question is this. What if the story was told from the stepmother's perspective, okay? Let's take the stepmother's perspective into account, okay? First of all, how did stepmom get stepdaughter? Where did stepdaughter come from? Because, it's not like she just went out and said, hey, I'm a single mother. I'm raising 2 daughters. You know what I need? Another daughter. I need another mouth to feed. Yeah, that's what I need. It's not like she did that. No. So what it sounds to me like is this. Mom has 2 daughters, and her first husband, I don't know, takes off something. Maybe he died. Maybe he just left, went out for cigarettes and never came back, something like that. So, single mom, 2 daughters. That's not a good situation to be in. It's not a good situation to be in now. It's sure not a good situation to be in back in 1500, back when the story was told. So what you have is a single mom raising 2 daughters, okay? Well, some guy comes into her life, and maybe this guy, he's got a grift. He's all like, yeah, I'm rich, I'm smart, I'm industrious, I got lots of money. Let's get married and I'll take care of you, okay? And so this woman with 2 daughters, single mom, raising these kids, she's like, you know what? It'd be great to have another income in the household. Fantastic. Let's get married. And the guy comes with a daughter, okay? So mom, with the 2 daughters, marries this man and legally adopts Ella, okay? So now mom has 3 kids to take care of, but that's okay because now she's got a rich man. She fell for the grift, okay? Well, this man takes off, goes out and gets some cigarettes, never comes back. So now this working mom, this single mom, now she's got 3 mouths to feed. I mean, she could barely make it with 2 mouths to feed. Now she's got another person to feed. So, and this girl, she's probably like, 8 years old or something like that. So, I mean, she's going to be around for another, 8 years at least, because back then, I guess you couldn't get married till you were like, well, I don't know, I guess you get married at 14 or 15, Most people died by the age of 18 back then, so they tried to marry them off early. So what happens here? Mom is taking care of her 2 daughters and her stepdaughter, Cinderella, because legally she has to. And then what happens? Some prince comes along and says, hey, your youngest daughter, I like her. And this prince, by the way, is probably like about 12 years old, okay? Because, back then, if you had a son, let's say you're a king, you have a son, and he's a prince. Prince was probably about 12 years old, right? And so he goes out looking for Cinderella. Well, Cinderella was probably like 8, all right, maybe 8 years old. And you know that because, well, the slipper, okay, you got the glass slipper here, okay, glass slipper. It didn't fit her older sisters, who were probably like 15, 16 years old, okay? So their feet were fully grown. Cinderella's feet were probably not fully grown. So she was probably like 8 years old, and this 12-year-old prince, he fell in love with her. She's like, hey, she likes the same thing I like, bubble gum, jawbreakers, video games, going down to the convenience store and getting a Slurpee and, listening to music and stuff, So the boy's 12, she's 8. a lot of stuff in common. And this was not an unusual, weird situation back then because, like I said, most people died before the age of 18. You know, if a prince met a girl who was 8 years old and figured, hey, I like her, they could hang out and date and everything. By the time he's 18 years old, she's going to be 14 years old, and you know, they could get married and, you know, live happily ever after, okay? But that's what happened. That's what happened. You know, the prince comes along. He's probably about 12. Cinderella, she's probably about 8. And, you know, they take off and they leave. So what happens? Well, you've got an 8-year-old girl's perspective of what her stepmother was doing. Okay, so, you know, her stepmother was taking care of her as best as she could. You know, she's a working mom trying to raise 2 other daughters. Now she's got a 3rd mouth to feed. You know, so she was doing whatever she could do to put bread on the table. You know, nobody in the family was really starving to death. Probably teaching Ella how to take care of a house. You know, you have to clean. You have to keep a house clean because back then, if you got stuck by a splinter, you could be dead the next week. You know, I mean, there were a lot of people who died from pretty much nothing back then. I mean, nowadays it's like, okay, you got that problem, a little bit of soap and water, and you know, you clean it up, put a Band-Aid on there. Back then, I mean, if you put a Band-Aid on something, it was probably dirty and filthy. You know, you just, oh, it's a piece of material. They didn't even know that dirt caused infections back then. You know, so a lot of people died from stupid, dumb stuff back then. So, you know, the stepmother has to teach Ella how to keep stuff clean. Well, she's an 8-year-old rambunctious little girl. She doesn't want to do anything. She wants to chew bubble gum. She wants to, you know, play coloring books. She wants to, you know, pet her puppy dog, put little bows and ribbons on her dolls and stuff like that. She's a little girl, right? So the little girl who, you know, the stepmother tried to take care of the little girl as much as she could. You know, her dad took off, went and got some cigarettes, never came back. So what's the little girl doing? The little girl is telling the 12-year-old prince her perspective on how the stepmother was raising her, right? So the stepmother's thanks, you know, her appreciation, the Cinderella shows her appreciation for not being thrown out on the street, being fed and taken care of, shows her appreciation by making the stepmother seem like an evil, horrible person. You know, and so here's the stepmother like, hey, look, I'm a single mom trying to raise 2 daughters. I got a 3rd daughter. I'm doing everything I can do to keep food on the table. A man just friggin' took off, left his daughter with me. What am I supposed to do? You know, so between what Cinderella says happened and what stepmother says happened, you know, those are 2 sides of the same story. What really happened is right between. Somewhere right between. Some guy needed to dump off his daughter. He couldn't afford her anymore. Maybe he was just tired of her. Got married, took off. Okay? And there's a prince. And the prince, you know, the king and the queen, they're trying to get the prince some, you know, attractive young girl so that he can get married in a couple of years and do his princely stuff. And, you know, hey, Ella just happens to be the person that he chose. She's a cute little 8-year-old girl. He's a, you know, nice little 12-year-old boy. When he's 18 and she's 14, they'll probably get married, live happily ever after. So what does the stepmom get out of it? Well, she gets her reputation thrown into the garbage, which really isn't very good, you know, because other people in the town are going to look at this and say, oh, that's what happens when you're kind, you know. When you show kindness to people, it can come back on you. It can destroy your reputation, you know, like that. So like I said, there's 3 sides to every story. And that's the way I look at the whole campaign thing. This is why I'm not going to say anything bad about any of the politicians that are working there right now. I mean, I will identify problems. And if you want to interpret me identifying problems as me saying bad things about people, that's fine. That is you can go ahead and do that. I'm not going to stand in your way. But identifying a problem is not necessarily an insult. It's not a defamation of your character. It's just simply identifying a problem. Okay, I'll do this from now on. It's just simply identifying a problem, okay? So if I see a problem, if I see, all right, well, these people are doing this thing and that's a problem, I'm going to try to encourage these people not to do that thing, because we aren't there, as representatives, we aren't there to follow our own personal agenda. We are there to work for the people of our congressional districts. And the people of our congressional districts need those 5 things: infrastructure, jobs, housing, food, fuel. And the United States collectively needs all the things that are in the preamble: form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Always 2. Provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, secure the allergies, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Okay? And that's really the responsibility every representative has. No personal agendas. So, well, it's been my hour. Appreciate you guys listening to me. I hope I haven't offended anybody or anything. But so Tom Timbrooks, Republican Party, Oregon 6th Congressional District, United States Congress. Please vote for me. If you have any questions at all, just go ahead and leave them in the comments. I will answer whatever questions you have. I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the best. Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, everybody. Wish you all the best. So thank you very much for listening, and take care.